Hello, how are you, my fellow Trek heads, my Trekkies, my Trekkers? How are you? It's been a while since I've been on here talking about new Trek, okay? Because lately I've been talking Deep Space Nine every Wednesday night with my friend Peter. We're doing a whole season rewatch, guys. So if you want to check that out, it's on Wednesday nights usually, although I have a really tough work schedule. So sometimes we will be on Thursday. In fact, I think next week we will be on Thursdays. So check the channel out if you want to follow that. But it's been really tough to be able to do like weekly reviews of all the Star Trek shows. I used to do it way back when with Star Trek Discovery and the first season of Star Trek Picard. But I could not come on and talk Star Trek Picard. So I just decided that I would do it after the season ended. So this is it. This is a season review. By the way, like and subscribe to the page if you can. I always forget to say that at the beginning. Let me see how this looks. Oh, that's me. Let me see how this looks. Oh, that's that. That's what I want to do. You see the little thing there. Like and subscribe to the page. I'm tiny right now. And talk Trek. I love Star Trek. It's a passion. I've been a fan since forever. I can't wait to watch Strange New Worlds. I got home about 9 p.m. tonight. So I dipped into some Star Trek Picard, wanted to get this out, and then I'll watch Strange New Worlds afterwards. And I'll probably make a video for that, and I'll see if I can keep it up on a weekly basis. That would be really cool because I love talking to you guys. And at one point, I was actually getting a lot of views on these videos. So it's very cool to talk to my fellow Trekkies out there. But tonight is Picard, season 2. And I'm going to start by saying this, guys. I love new Trek. It's so exciting to have, just to have new Star Trek, man. I grew up on Star Trek on TV. That's where Star Trek is at its best. And was it 2006 or so, early 2000s when Enterprise went off the air and we haven't had Star Trek on TV since forever. I never imagined that we would have Star Trek on TV ever again, in spite of the success of the J.J. Abrams movies. And actually, the last movie didn't do as well, so that kind of put a damper on things. I said, I guess that was a cool little experiment that didn't exactly, pan out like we would expect. So I had zero hopes of Star Trek coming back to TV because TV has changed so much. And as much as I love watching the old shows, like I said, I'm doing a Star Trek Deep Space Nine rewatch, but that stuff worked for 1994, even though you can still watch it today, but you can't make that today. It doesn't have, TV has just changed as far as pacing and topics and what you can do on a TV show in order to be ahead of the game. Star Trek has never been a TV show that's followed. It's been a TV show that has led, whether it's with special effects, whether it's with the themes, whether it's with the action, whatever. It's a show that has always been at the front. It's the granddaddy of the sci-fi shows, you could say, in a way, that all other sci-fi space shows are measured by. So I I just I thought to myself, we would never get Star Trek again. And why am I giving this big old preamble? Because I happen to enjoy new Trek. I really like Star Trek Discovery. I think at moments it's amazing. At moments it's like, yeah, okay, that could have been a better episode. But I feel that way about almost every Star Trek series. There are no perfect Star Trek series. And Star Trek Picard is no different. And unfortunately, though, this season was hard to get through. It wasn't the most exciting season. Started out pretty well. So that big preamble is just because people are so sensitive about new Trek, classic Trek. It's like, yeah, well, actually, the Doctor Who fans seem to be a little bit nicer about it. New Who versus old Who. I definitely like classic Who more than new Doctor Who, but I enjoy new Doctor Who too, in its own way. And New Trek, classic Trek is kind of the same thing, guys. It's got to be updated. Otherwise, it would die like it did the first time. You can't just repeat the same old moral story, moral lessons and whatever over and over and over and over and over again without it getting tired. Which is why I'm looking forward to Star Trek Strange New Worlds, because the whole thing with that is that it's a return to that, but I'm sure it's been done in a very updated way. So I'm looking forward to watching that and seeing how they were able to give a modern take on the old storytelling style. And I swear we'll get to Trek in a second, but I should save this for the Strange New Worlds little podcast. But folks, it's all Star Trek, basically. It's all Star Trek. It's different roads that you can take to get to the same philosophy of working together, overcoming odds, whether it starts out dark and gets light at the end, whether it starts out light and stays light till the end, whatever it is, New Trek is Trek. You may not like the writing, you may not like some of the acting, whatever. That's different. That's like somebody that will say, I don't enjoy Star Trek Voyager because of the writing, because of the opportunities that they missed in the storytelling, but it's still Star Trek. It's still Star Trek. So Discovery, Lower Decks, Prodigy, which I haven't seen, all this stuff is Star Trek, including Star Trek Picard. And it's in the same universe, okay, of, Captain Kirk. So, yes, I'm coming from that perspective, not one of these hater people. But it doesn't mean that I can't look at a season and say, could have been better, which is how I felt about Star Trek Picard Season 2. It just could have been better. And it's a shame because it started out with a bang. Okay, and I know there were a lot of restrictions with COVID, so perhaps that had a lot to do with them kind of doing this time travel bit where they didn't have to be out in space and doing a bunch of phaser fights. And there were a lot of moments in this season where there were just people sitting in a room having a conversation, maybe 2 characters, 3 at most. So maybe that had something to do with it. I'd like to hope that was it, and it wasn't these writers actually thought that this would be an interesting storyline for this season. But I'm not sure. I guess we'll never really know. All we can judge this show on is on what we got. And what we got is a time travel story. I have to admit I wasn't pumped for it even when I saw the trailers, because Star Trek has done it a million times before. I guess, the only novelty is that, okay, Picard has never done it. There's Time's Arrow, which, they travel back to, like, what is it, Elizabethan or whatever. They got all those fluffy dresses time. But Star Trek has never done it like, Captain Kirk got to travel back to the 80s and have the whole, what's money? How do I count? All those comedic moments that you get when people are taken out of their time. Cisco got to travel back during the riots there, in those episodes. I'll get to that episode eventually during our rewatch. And Voyager did it, right? They had a 2-parter where they traveled to Los Angeles in the 90s, which is when the show was on. So but for budgetary reasons, those shows are wonderful. But Star Trek, the Next Generation cast never got to do it. I mean, First Contact was a time travel episode, but Picard was on the ship, for all of it. Did he ever end up beaming down to planet Earth? I don't recall. So I guess this was Patrick Stewart's opportunity to have those moments and have that adventure in real world, our world, quote unquote, Los Angeles, maybe a little bit, what do you call it? A little bit different, a little bit more technologically advanced, but not by much. So, all right, cool. That that's basically it. That's the only unique thing of a time travel episode, because we've seen them done over and over and over. So that didn't excite me. But what happened with the opening is that I really got into it. The first three episodes of Star Trek Picard were way better than the first three episodes of Star Trek Picard season one, which really meandered. Oh my God, that was slow. That was slow. That felt like geriatric version of Star Trek. And eventually it got moving, and things started to happen, and then I kind of got into it. I got into it more than I did season two. It just kind of all fell apart at the end. The season finale was kind of a mess. I appreciated the whole data closure. That was nice, but aside from that, I was like, just everything just, it's like Discovery has this problem where it builds up, builds up, builds up, meanders here, meanders there, and then it's got to do everything in one episode. That's how Star Trek Picard season two played out. This season just meandered, and we'll get to my feelings on the episode that came out today. Just surprisingly a little bit better. It seemed like it took its time to say everything that it had to say. It's just that we had 10 episodes to say this, and it felt way too long. So the beginning, yeah, it was great. Stargazer was the name of that episode, and Jean-Luc Picard and Laris, trying to spark a romance there, but Jean-Luc just can't do it. Jean-Luc, that's part of his character. He's this guy who just never found love. He's this guy that is more in love with the stars than he is with people. So I like that it brought that out. We got our old friends back, Seven of Nine. She's back, and Agnes and Girardi and Rios. These guys have really gelled well together. I wasn't hip on them as a team throughout most of season one, but here it just really feels like these guys, as actors, as characters, they gelled finally. And the issue is that Borg ship that comes out, right? But it's the Borg like we've never seen before. And the Queen jumps onto the Stargazer. She's connecting to everything. You're like, what the hell is going on? Great stuff. And then boom, Picard wakes up in his version of his home and is greeted by Q. Okay, who has returned to test Picard again. Great opening. Oh, and we get a little bit of Guinan there at the beginning, which is nice to see Whoopi back as Guinan. And then it gets even better, because then we find out, hey, we're in some alternate reality where we have the Confederation of Earth. Everybody's xenophobic. Captain Picard is this like killer space general, whatever, who's got the heads of his enemies on in this war room. Really good stuff. The pacing is really great. They really fixed that from last season. I'm into it. And then episode 3, Assimilation. More of that. They got to escape. They got to figure out why are they there. And the Borg Queen gets transported back, and she kind of figures out, she knows a little bit of why it is that Q changed the timeline. She's not saying anything, but we know that the Queen has information there that is important. Elnor dies. We missed him throughout most of the season, but just because he's cute, Elnor is one of the most useless characters on the show. But then they realize we need to go out and figure this mystery out. Okay, so they all transport off of the ship, and then that's when the show starts going downhill for me, because it was side story hell. And the first side story was Rios getting caught by the ICE agent. And it just was like, what is going on? Okay, well, he didn't get caught by the ICE agent, right? First, he hit his head. when he transported somewhere, and then he goes to this hospital, and in that hospital they are eventually raided by ICE agents, and then he gets locked up, and then Rafi and Seven need to help him, and I'm like, what am I watching? And it lasted for a couple of episodes. It's not just like one episode, it's a couple of episodes. And it just so totally, it's like they have that expression, it loses the plot. Like, I lost the plot. I'm like, we're back in the past to fix something in order to get a better future. Star Trek 4. And, we did have a little callback to Star Trek 4 with the guy on the bus. But let me, give us little hints of what that is. Move that plot forward. If you want to have some side stories, that's fine, but don't make the side story like the main story, because then not only do we have Rios getting caught by ICE, then all of a sudden we start getting these Picard flashbacks to when he was a kid and something with his mom, and look up Picard. So then, did the mom eventually become the Borg queen? What is going on? We lost the plot. It wasn't terrible, but it didn't move the story forward. That for me was the biggest problem with this season. Compared to last season, that was slow as all get out, but it appeared to be moving the story forward. Even the stuff in that Borg cube, which in the end was kind of needless, but at least it moved the story forward a little bit. When Picard went and met with Riker and Troy and all that stuff, it moved us to a conclusion. Like, one chapter went after the other to get us to our inevitable end. Whereas this, I didn't feel that thread. I didn't feel like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens next week. Like season 2 of Star Trek Discovery, which is great. In season 3, also, I thought did that pretty well. Season 4, not so much. It meandered a little bit. We lost the plot a little bit, and then it came back in the end and gave us one of the best episodes of the series. The penultimate episode was wonderful. But back to Picard, when we get to episode 4, The Watcher, Picard and Agnes, they learn from Agnes' connections to the Queen that the change to the timeline they must prevent to avoid the dark future of the Confederation will happen in 3 days' time. Agnes connects to the Queen. And that's when things start to move with the Agnes storyline, because she gets a little bit of Queenie in her and vice versa. Meanwhile, Seven and Rafi are searching for Rio. So again, it's like, where are you going? Okay, where are you going? And then they have to find somebody called the Watcher. Who is the Watcher? And Picard thinks it's somebody, it's an old friend, Guinan. And we meet young Guinan. And young Guinan doesn't know who Picard is. She's like, who are you? And she's, trying to shoot him down and all this stuff. And then we find out at the end now, and I don't want to jump ahead of myself too much. By the way, I had tequila shots today. So if I'm a little wackier than usual, because I'm always wacky, that's why. So then we get Guinan, Whoopi Goldberg Guinan at the end, saying, oh, I wish I could have told you everything, but I didn't want to spoil it for you. So you're telling me she knew that was really Picard? Oh, man, the timeline stuff, that's another thing. This episode just said, I was going to say a bad word. I might as well. Guys, I curse, okay? If you watch some of my channel stuff, you know that I curse. This season just said, fuck the timeline and, butterfly effects and all of that. Who gives a damn, I give a damn a little bit. Protect the timeline, or maybe not. Guys, they didn't care. It was whatever. So, again, I'll save my thoughts on Guinan revealing what she revealed at the end for the end, because that did piss me off a little bit. And then we find out again, it's all this stuff coming out that Q might be dying. Okay? Doesn't have his snapping powers. And we also find out that Q wants to prevent this woman, okay, who's working on a planned Europa spaceflight mission from completing her mission. Again, another thread that leads nowhere. So, Guinan is not the Watcher. She takes him to this lady who introduces herself as Talon. This is the episode Fly Me to the Moon, directed by Jonathan Frakes, and explains to Picard that she protects one of his ancestors, Renee Picard. And it's this woman that Q had targeted earlier, okay? And I'm reading here from Wiki, guys, because I forget all this stuff. And I work like a dog, and I don't got time to be writing scripts and all that stuff. And that's why I don't have 100,000 views on my YouTube videos. But I'm happy for the views that I do get and for you guys that listen, that enjoy my company. And yes, Q's all up in this. You know, he wants to stop Renee from flying. He approaches Dr. Adamson, played by Brent Spiner, again, you know, another ancestor of Data. And he's a disgraced geneticist, and he's saying, look, you gotta get this girl to not fly. And there's a guy that may want to, you know, get in your way from doing that. His name is Picard. So you might want to get rid of Picard. Okay? And I can help you. Anyway. Seven and Rafi, meanwhile, break Rios out of ICE custody. This is episode 5. So we've had, like, you know, since they went back in time. Let me see. When is it that Rio's transporter malfunctions and he is knocked out, waking up in a clinic that secretly treats undocumented. So that's 3. They have 1, 2, 3 whole episodes of Rios in ICE prison, like totally not doing something to move this plot forward. You know, he does meet this nice girl and the boy, and they do end up happily ever after. So I guess that's the Rios arc. But basically, you get 3 of our main characters, because now Seven and Rafi can't work on the mission because they got to save this dude. So you got 3 full episodes of side mission that have nothing to do with what's pertinent. And what's pertinent is we got to fix the timeline. We got to find out who the Watcher is. I mean, Picard goes out there and does it, but, you know, he was meant to stay on the ship and just kind of monitor everything. So I don't know. It didn't make sense to me. I didn't like it. It totally took us off kilter. But eventually they all get together. Okay? They all get together. But meanwhile, the Queen does tap into the ship's communication to broadcast an emergency call and lures policemen into the ship. Agnes shoots the Queen to prevent her from assimilating the policemen, but the dying Queen does inject Agnes with Borg nanoprobes. The scenes between Agnes and the Queen were pretty cool. Except, you know, again, a lot of folks feel that New Trek deals too much with emotions. I don't have a problem with that at all. And I just accept it for what it is. It is the pertinent topic of the day. It is being locked indoors because of the pandemic. It is dealing with PTSD from a number of things. It is digging deeper into a character than just I am the stoic Starfleet officer who will do everything without shedding a tear, and, you know, we'll get to the next mission next week and blah, 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 blah. TV doesn't work that way anymore, you know. TV post The Sopranos, it's realism. It's supposed to show us that our heroes can be broken too. A lot of folks had an issue with that with Star Wars The Last Jedi. I happen to like it, that they showed that, hey, Luke felt that he had wasted his time. He did have his redemption at the end, though. I think that's the part that I don't get, people kind of missed, is that he had a redemption arc where he showed that, no, I am a hero, and this is what I'm set out to do: is save the galaxy. So it seems like Picard is just going through these same issues. He needs to deal with some internal stuff. Agnes is totally dealing with some internal stuff, but then to have the Queen, the Borg Queen, deal with some internal stuff, that for me was just going a little bit overboard. That the Queen is just lonely too, and she needs companionship. I'm like, okay, I don't know if I need that much depth out of the Borg Queen, but hey, I'm glad Star Trek, new Trek, is not afraid to deal with people's emotions and what they're feeling, uh, you know, regarding the things around them. But eventually, people do all get back together. And in the episode 6, 2 of 1, and we don't know yet, I guess, that. Oh no, maybe we do about this time, that the Queen is kind of in Agnes's mind. The rest of the characters don't know. And now, episode 6, okay, more than halfway through the season, it's a 10-episode season, we finally get back to the plot, the pertinent thing. It's like we gotta capture a whale. We gotta get this whale off this planet and into the future, so that the big turd probe in the sky can stop destroying everything, right? Not that difficult of a plot, and it's great. We got to do this, okay? We got to do, what was it with the Bell riots? It's been a while since I've seen that episode, so I don't know the details. I don't recall the details, but they had to do something with those Bell riots, either prevent it or whatever. Boom. Got to do something. In the Voyager episode, I'd forget even less what they had to do. But it's pretty focused. And that's what this long season arc felt like. It could have, if it were 3 episodes, 4 episodes maybe, that's it. That's how much story you have. And that's the problem that you can have with these long, season-long arcs. It works for some shows, but not for every show, because what you end up having is a filler, and a lot of filler for a story that maybe is just an episode long. Before, okay, we had 24 episodes in a season. Yes, we're going to have a lot of just silly episodes and, mid-season episodes where nobody's really watching, because, you watch the beginning of the season, you watch the end of the season, and that's fine. We forgive it, because the next week, hey, we're going to get this bottle episode, and it might be incredible. So we can forgive the lackluster ones in the middle. When you're dealing with a season-long arc, it's harder to do that, because you're invested in what that setup is, and then you get these 3 or 4 episodes in the middle that are doing nothing to move that story forward to that investment, and you just say, what the fuck, what, like, get back to the story. So Picard season 2 had a lot of that, because if you take the first 3 episodes, maybe 1 or 2 of these episodes in the middle, or maybe 1 or 2 elements, and crunch them into 1 episode, and then you give us the final episode, I think you have a pretty decent story there. It's actually a nice emotional story, but because it's spread out so long, it lost its punch. It just totally lost its punch. And yeah, pretty much that. In 2 of 1, they end up at this gala. Picard finds Renee. He tries to convince her to go on this ship. Soon, is going to end up there, because Q is, what do you call it? Q is manipulating everything. Oh, and yeah, and Soong has his daughter named Corey, which we find out is like a genetic, she's made in a lab. She finds this out later. And yeah, that's inconsequential as hell too. Like, that just felt like we needed to use this actress. We didn't want to get rid of her, so we gave her this role that's 100% inconsequential to the main story. But okay, I'm not even going to spend time on these little side stories. They were just useless. So then we get the episode Monsters. Oh boy, this is my least favorite of the season, because another thing that's been happening, I have already mentioned, is that Picard is having these flashbacks of when he was a child. It's something with his mother, and it just keeps repeating and repeating. I'm like, God damn it, get to the point. Okay? In Monsters is the episode where we start to get to the point, because Picard gets run over by Sung at the end of the gala. So he ends up on his, almost in a coma, okay? Who is it? The doctor that Rio's met. She's taking care of him. And it all comes out. All the truth comes out. We're from the future, and it is what it is. And then we get what I consider one of the most boring television tropes. And before doing Deep Space Nine, guys, my friend Peter and I did a whole season, an entire show rewatch of the X-Files and reviewed all of them. So check that out on the channel if you're a fan of the X-Files. And even with the X-Files, my least favorite episodes were the ones where Scully was on her deathbed, and then half of the episode is her like on a rowboat with this rope. Grab the rope, come back. And there's another episode where Mulder, he almost dies, and these indigenous folks are trying to bring him back, and he's out in La La Land talking to these past characters that died. The Deep Throat way back from season 1. Oh, I hate these type of episodes, man. Because we know what the conclusion's going to be. Okay, they're going to come back. They're going to figure something out in their minds that's important, okay, for them, maybe not even for us as viewers, because next week they're just back to work. Mulder and Scully are chasing monsters again, and Picard's back to, we need to find out. We need to get Renee on that ship again. But here, what was the thing? It was, he thought his dad was abusive, but then he realizes, thinking back, wait, maybe he wasn't really abusive. Maybe my mom was nuts, which I find hard to believe that he would repress something, because when we do find out, well, maybe that's why, because of what his mom did. But I'm trying to figure this out, like how he could repress that much of his childhood. It's not like there was this one thing that happens and you repress it, like if you're abused as a child, or if you're sexually molested, or if you saw somebody jump from a bridge and then you just kind of block out those memories. And even still, those memories usually block out if you're very young, 6, 7 years old. He was kind of an old, looked like he was about 13 or 14. And I find it hard to believe that the character of Picard, as intelligent as he is, as introspective as he is, and although he is stoic, he does hide his feelings, he would completely block out something as basic as your mom's kind of nuts, and your dad was just putting her in her room for her own safety. I find that hard to believe. I also find it hard to believe that in the whatever century they're in, 23rd, whatever, I always get my Star Trek dates a little bit wrong, that somebody that has some type of mental disorder like she did, whether she was bipolar, I guess, they wouldn't have some type of medical treatment for that, or they wouldn't put her in a medical facility. They would just be like, yeah, let's just lock her up in a room like they did. I mean, we don't even do that today. It's 2023. See, I told you I was bad with dates. It's 2023, and we don't do that with people. And you want me to believe that they did that with Picard's mom? And his dad was a Starfleet person, who's supposed to be very scientifically minded, and who would have access to the best type of medical care possible in the known, quadrant. Take her to Vulcan if you got to. Have her, them do some mind meld with her. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of options. There's options today. Whether it's holistic, take some ayahuasca, start smoking some weed, do some meditation, spend 6 months in India, whatever, or go see a doctor, go to the Mayo Clinic. There's plenty of suicide helpline. I don't know. I just couldn't buy that part of the storyline that the father would let the mom suffer like that, and two, that Picard would block out the fact that his mom was a little insane. I shouldn't say that. That's so, speaking of feelings, she had some mental disorder. I can't believe that he would block that out. I could see him blocking out what she did in the end. Spoilers. By the way, did I say spoilers at the beginning of this little podcast? I don't know. But if I didn't, spoilers, we find out that she commits suicide. Anyway, that's the episode, monsters, guys. It was definitely not my favorite. Rafi and Seven do discover that the ship's computers have been sabotaged with Borg encryption codes, and begin tracking Agnes, who is out. She's like, I'm gone. Because she is trying to get the Queen to create endorphins. Oh, sorry. The Queen is trying to create more endorphins in Agnes so she has enough power to assimilate more people and become a new Borg Queen. And that takes us to episode 8 called Mercy. Okay? God. We get a whole 3-episode arc of Rio's getting locked up, which was boring. So the writers say, let's lock them up again. But this time, let's lock up Picard and Guinan. Are you kidding me? Yes. By the way, this is because Guinan is trying to summon Q, using some Elorian ritual, okay? It doesn't work. And then in comes the FBI agent, Martin Wells, who is played... the same actor that plays Dutch in The Shield. That's where I remember him from. Some people pointed out that he was a time agent in Voyager. I get that Star Trek loves using their actors. They'll be in, especially Jeffrey Combs, but they'll play different roles and stuff like that. But usually they're very separate roles. They're not connected. We do have Michael Dorn playing the defense attorney for Captain Kirk and Dr. McCoy in Star Trek 6. And that is so close that, in universe, they said, oh, that's an ancestor of Worf, because it's so close, to have them be the same actor. So kind of weird for me, kind of a missed opportunity. A lot of folks were like, oh, he must be a time agent. And when it turned out speaking of the X-Files, that could have been played by David Duchovny. He was just an FBI agent that believed in aliens because he did get visited by some Vulcans when he was little. And he, was out, he thought he found some aliens. That's it. That's seriously it. We spend a whole episode with Picard and Guinan being locked up, kind of more like an episode in a dash there. And for what? Guinan is visited by Q, who tells her he's dying, okay? And that this trial is a final attempt to give his own life meaning, okay? That does play a part in the end. And he does note that all humans are stuck in the past, which does relate a little bit to Star Trek Deep Space Nine, the emissary, right? And Guinan uses astral projection to share this message with Picard, and Wells does reveal that he's encountered aliens when he was little, which were the Vulcans. And Wells is forced to release Picard and Guinan after the FBI dismisses him for conducting an illegal investigation. What? That's what I'm talking about. It's just like meander me this, meander me that. Like where, like aren't we supposed to be stopping Renee or not stopping Renee, getting Renee to go on this flight? Why is Q trying to stop her? Soong seems like a pretty dangerous guy. Shouldn't we be worried about making sure that he's not gonna do anything? All of a sudden now we got the Borg Queen. Is the Borg Queen? Is that the threat? Is that the main thing that we need to worry about this season? Dude, it's like 5 different stories going to 5 different places, but you got 10 episodes. You kind of got to crunch that a little bit more. Streamline it. Get us from, like, the first 3 episodes was perfect. Boom, boom, boom. It's like, we're in the past. We got to get out of this situation, out of this the U.S. Confederacy of whatever, of dunces. Boom. Let's do it. And they did. And it was cool. And then after that, it was like, Rios gets locked up. 7 and 9 got to find Rios. But then Agnes is alone with the Queen. And then Agnes is probably going to be the next Borg Queen. And then Picard's having memories from his childhood. And with his mom, what's going on? And then he meets Guinan again. And they get locked up. And it's not the best writing. It's something that maybe I would write. I'm not... I'm not that great of a writer, I wouldn't be doing these videos if I was a great, like Stephen King or whatever level writer. And one of the things that when I've written, and I've had people edit my work, said, oh, you got to focus the story. A good story needs to have a focal point. It needs to have a driving force. And the great stories are the ones that seem like they're meandering, but they're really not, because all these elements are pushing that main, it's kind of squeezing that main story forward, which these stories didn't. They were just kind of like these dangling threads that do get resolved. So they're not totally dangling, but they don't work to move the main story forward, which was a problem with The Last Jedi, by the way, with the side mission of, what's his name? The black dude there. He got shitted on by Disney so bad that I forgot his name. He was going to set up to be a great character. But anyway, this is not a Star Wars podcast, so if you watch the movie, you know what I'm talking about. You just can't have side stories like that out of nowhere that don't connect, unless it's like the most amazing side story ever, which is usually not going to be the case. So we get to episode 9. Okay. Hide and seek. The Queen, Soong, and the drones beam onto La Sirena, while Picard, Talon, Raffi, and Seven beam to Chateau Picard. Agnes's conscience blocks the Queen from the ship's systems until Seven and Raffi arrive. They try to use the ship against the Queen, but she mortally wounds Seven. By the way, Queen visited Soong a little while before, and she tells him that he can save his legacy by helping her steal La Sirena, thereby enabling her to conquer the galaxy. Soong provides her with a squad of mercenaries to convert into Borg drones. Where is this going? Isn't Soong supposed to be stopping Renee? Now he's helping the Queen, the Borg Queen. How's that going to help him stop Renee? I don't know. Is the Borg Queen the main storyline here? Because she was in the first episode, the main cliffhanger. Who the hell knows? Who the hell cares? That's where I was at this point in the story, okay? And episode 9 does finally give us closure to some things, though. Thank God. One of them is that Picard recalls his mother having a mental breakdown, while they were playing hide and seek in the tunnels when he was a boy, after which she ended her own life. And he has these flashbacks. God, episode 9 was frustrating because Picard kept having these flashbacks in the middle, or like really pretty good action sequences. The episode 9 actually moved along pretty quickly and took us to somewhat of a conclusion here with the Borg Queen and all that jazz. But yeah, guys, this is the problem. Was it horrible the way that she died? Yes. But we meandered so much that it's terrible to say this, but I just didn't care. Like, I did not care that Picard's mother killed himself. Because, I'll tell you why. Because that sounds like the worst possible thing a human could say about another human, even if he's a fake human from a fake universe. But looking back over 7 seasons of Star Trek The Next Generation and 4 movies and now 1 season of Picard, okay, Picard's a little stoic. Okay, Picard, well, maybe got laid a couple times, but he never figured out, the romance thing. But Picard wasn't a broken man. He was never portrayed as a broken man. The thing that traumatized him the most was the whole best of both worlds deal, becoming Locutus. And we saw that in Star Trek First Contact, that great scene where, him and, what's her name? La, 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 la. I have to get her name, guys. Don't mind me typing. First Contact. It's Alfre Woodard that plays Lily Sloan. That great scene that she has with him in the captain's quarters, calling him Ahab. You just destroy the damn ship. Picard, and he breaks all his tiny little ships. So that makes sense. That's emotionally powerful because we saw, one of the great Star Trek episodes, one of the few Star Trek The Next Generation episodes that built on the last one, that wasn't just reset button, is called Family, where he needs to take some time off and he meets his brother and this and that and the third. That's emotionally powerful. The Inner Light, emotionally powerful. We see this growth that Captain Jean-Luc Picard needed to have. But mommy issues just was never one of them. Like, none of his stoicism and any of that stuff seemed to come from mommy issues. Even, they had the episode where Q showed what his life would be if he hadn't gotten in the bar fight and gotten stabbed, and if he had lived this safe life, it would have been miserable as a blue shirt, was like medical officer or whatever, science officers or wear the blue. That makes sense, because that was what do you call it? The pacemaker he had is in his heart, whatever, getting stabbed in the heart did kind of affect him, but mommy issues, like when I watched episode 10, I didn't see a Picard that was that much different than the Picard from episode 8 before we realized that, okay, his mom killed himself. Like, okay, so his mom killed himself. He felt guilty for it because he let her out, because she kept saying, let me out, and so he grabbed the key and let her out. So you're telling me that affected him so badly that we were watching a broken man through 7 seasons of TNG plus 4 seasons of 4 movies plus 1 season of Star Trek Picard, because even last season he wasn't that broken. He was kind of tired and he felt like he he still needed to do more. He's just become a old tired version of himself, and but that's not mommy issues. That's the issues of a man that doesn't know when to retire, and he wants to be out in the stars, and he's like, yeah, and he's still got issues for letting Data die. That makes sense. We felt that at the end of Star Trek Nemesis. That definitely affected him. So that's what I'm saying, is that the mommy issues never in this whole character's television and movie life seemed to be an issue, including up to the last season of Star Trek Picard, including to the beginning of this season. Okay? Right up to the point where he started having these flashbacks, and we're like, you're kidding me, right? Like, what is this? It seems so contrived. Therefore, him remembering that she committed suicide had zero impact. Like, okay, like, how is this Picard now changed because he's remembered that his mom committed suicide? I ask you. So I thought it was pretty stupid. The whole flashback thing was just totally unnecessary and annoying. Mama, mama. Oh, I hate stuff like that. Oof, with those little, like, those perfect little kids, like in Star Trek Generations, it was the same, but it was, Papa, Papa, look. I'm like, I work with some kids, man, at a high school. I wish kids were like that. Good Lord. That's another thing. It's like, okay, you can't find good medical care for your damn wife, like, in 200 years' time, and you're telling me kids are going to be that well behaved in 2 years' time, where they're going to revert back to, like, some idyllic version of, like, 18th century, whatever, what era is that? Is that Elizabethan France? And be calling everybody, Mama, Papa. I don't believe it. I don't buy it. I thought it was stupid. Anyway, moving on. We got the last. Oh, I'm sorry. No. Yeah, how could I skip this? Feelings. Nothing more than feelings. Because Agnes convinces the Queen to change her ways and build a new Borg collective through cooperation rather than assimilation, truly becoming a new Borg Queen. The new Queen heals Seven by adding her to the collective and then departs in La Sirena for the Delta Quadrant, leaving a message for Picard. There must be two versions of Renee, one who will fly to Europa and one who will die. Good Lord. I mean, I did like how it all tied in to the last episode. And I guess in a way it's a cool way to rebrand the Borg, because people have been complaining about the Borg since forever, ever since Voyager just overdid it with the Borg. I watched Voyager about 6 years ago, 5 years ago for the first time. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the Borg episodes. I didn't think, they defanged them or anything like that. Okay, I mean, every time that you repeat the bad guy like that, a bad guy that's scary, it's always going to lose a little bit of luster. You can't keep it going on forever. It's like the Daleks going to Doctor Who. They were really scary at one point, and they were really frightening, even though they got that weird look to them. But, they were a real threat. But at some point, you're like, oh, it's those guys again. After the third time, it's nearly impossible. And that goes through everything, whether it's Freddy Krueger. By the third, fourth film, he was busting jokes. Very difficult. Because we see the character enough where it's almost like our eyes adjust. We like, oh, okay, it's this guy again. And we know we're going to beat him at the end, and he's going to try his hardest to catch us, to beat us, kill us, but we're going to beat him. So the scare factor goes away. So it would be inevitable that the Borg wouldn't be as scary as they were in Best of Both Worlds. Even Best of Both Worlds Part 2 is not that great of an episode. I don't like it that much. Because what else can you do with that? What else can you do with this force that's like impossible to beat? You can have some creative stories. Like I love First Contact. It's a cool Borg story. And the Queen was a great addition to that. And eventually it just, what else can you do with, especially if you have a villain that's so single-minded. Resistance is futile. We will add your uniqueness to our own. Blah 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 blah. You can't do much with that. It's like the Daleks: exterminate, exterminate, exterminate. What can you do with that as far as emotional depth, 3 dimensions, whatever? It's not like Sherlock Holmes Moriarty where you can have endless stories with those two characters. They'll always be great because they're full rounded characters. Or Lex Luthor and Superman, whatever, Joker and Batman. You can have a million stories, and you can always find an angle because those are full 3D characters. The Borg are not. The Borg is just the mechanical threat. It's like the Terminator. What can you do? You just keep rehashing the same thing, which is what they usually do. Alien is another one. What can you do? You're just going to keep rehashing because that's what they usually do. And you see how people just get tired, and the first ones will always be the best ones as far as those movies and those appearances, because then it's scary, it's new, it's fresh. So, okay, we've revamped the Borg. We'll see where that leads us. Well, it leads us to the episode called Farewell, which is number 10. And we get flashed. Well, we don't get flashed back to the future yet. Picard realizes that the Queen's message means that Talon will have to sacrifice herself to ensure Renee's survival. He tries to stop her, but Talon rebuffs him and finds Renee. And she gives him this nice speech. I like this speech that she gave him. Like, man, you're full of guilt for losing people and this and that and the third, and you can't live with this forever. Now, I wish you would have tied that more to his stint as Locutus, because as captain, okay, every captain's gonna lose people, but I think there was actually a graphic once, which was the safest captain to be the safest captain to have as your leading man, as far as your chances of survival. And I think Picard scored pretty high. People weren't dying every week in the Enterprise D. So again, where does all that guilt come from? Okay, it comes definitely from Data dying and his time as Locutus and fighting the Wolf battle there where a bunch of people died. Cisco is definitely not a fan of his, but it just feels contrived. If it were more focused, I could buy it, as far as all this guilt, whatever. So Talon does use a holographic disguise to switch places with Renee when Soong confronts her and kills her, fatally poisons her. Picard finds her at the last moment and comforts her as she dies. Renee successfully departs on her Europa mission, and Q's trial is now complete. And he and Picard share their final moments together. Though Q denies it, Picard suspects that by helping him overcome the demons of his past, Q is preparing him for an unknown calamity in the future. Now, that's the most interesting part of it all, is where it's going to lead. Because we have this moment in this last episode where Picard is saying, like, why? And Q is like, finish the sentence. And he's like, why me? And Q breaks down and tells him he loves him. You're special to me. That's why. As a gods, even gods have their favorites. And Q is dying. And Q is like, I don't want to die alone. Or, no, I am going to die alone. And I don't want the same to happen to you. But fucking Lord, man, that was a very roundabout way to say it, but um, needlessly roundabout, because Q does tend to go roundabout, to get his message across, but it's roundabout focused, you know. You, it's not roundabout, you know. Let me change the timeline, and we're gonna have this weird federation, whatever, the Confederacy. We're not gonna, I don't know, Rios is gonna go to ice jail, and Elnor's gonna die, and the Borg Queen is not gonna be the Borg Queen. It's like, what the fuck are you talking? And then why are you trying to stop Renee from boarding the ship? How the fuck is that gonna help Picard overcome his past demons, which is what their conversation is about? It's not about Renee getting on the damn ship to Europa. It's about, you had to deal with your mommy issues. You dealt with them, and now you can be loved. Because I know your old ass is gonna die at some point, and I don't want you to die alone. Oh, so beautiful! It's so nice. That was a nice little conversation. It wasn't as deep and powerful as the Data Picard conversation from last season, but okay, it's cute. Except that I need. Well, I'm gonna say minus episodes 1, 2, and 3. So what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 episodes of like nonsense to get there? Come on, man. Q, you lost your touch, man. This is just, come on. It was all over the place. But the good news is that Q does use the remainder of his power to send Picard, Seven, and Raffi back to their deaths on the Stargazer and revive Elnor. Rios decides he's going to stay in the past because fuck, the timeline. And that's the thing. It's like, oh, fuck the timeline for real. Because it seemed like Q created a pocket universe, but really he created a new. He would seem like after the end of this episode, he actually sent them back to their own timeline. So everything that happened there, it shifted the timeline back to the TNG, what we want, what would happen in TNG, which does mean that Guinan was lying. She did know who Picard was. So I apologize if I ever made any comments to anybody in the Star Trek groups that said, how does Guinan not know who he is? Because it felt like the way it was explained is that this is a pocket universe, like an alternate timeline. It's not even a mirror universe or anything. It's just almost like imagination timeline, but it could turn into reality and they could all be stuck there if they didn't do the right thing. But no, this was prime timeline. Apparently, that's what I understood. If I'm wrong, let me know. This is prime timeline, prime universe timeline. So yes, that was the same punk that got pinched by Spock. So Spock did really go back to the past. There were really whales to save, I guess. Yeah, I mean, maybe they were a little bit more vicious. That's why he grabbed his neck and not his he didn't give him a pinch. So, okay, whatever. I guess it is what it is. So if that's the case, Rio stays in the past. Fuck the future. But if he stayed in the past, he's never going to have existed in the future. I guess he does in some weird way. Yeah, I guess he's born in the future, lives to a certain point, and then ends his life in the past. That makes sense, doesn't it? Because it's not like he was never born. And he doesn't birth himself. Oh, whatever, guys. Time travel stuff is always going to get freaky. But yes, Guinan does say, hey, I didn't want to spoil it for you. Then why were you such a, like, you went extra, bitch. You went extra. I don't know. I wished also that they would have had a little bit more explanation of the Olorian connection with Q. It seemed like they were about to get to it, but they never did because Q and Guinan do have a nice little conversation. Now they're back. The Stargazer Picard is like, you're Girardi to the Borg Queen, which we already knew as the audience, so it's not that much of a shocker. And then we realized that yes, uh, oh, but that's screwy now because when did she become Girardi? What about the Borg Queen from First Contact? The Borg Queen from Star Trek Voyager. Although I think there's a in-universe explanation that those aren't necessarily the same Borg Queens. Are like the Queen is like is created. I guess uh it's a position, and if one Borg Queen dies, just another one will be created using the same memories and all the same techniques of the old Borg Queen. So, but the Girardi Borg Queen has been around since the time that they went back in time. 2024, I guess, was the date. Maybe it's the tequila, guys, but that's not making sense to me. It's not making sense to me. You help me out. Now, she does, though, present herself as we had all guessed because we saw that she wasn't killing anybody when she boarded on the ship. Although if it was Girardi, she could have just told Picard, hey, I'm Girardi. So was she working with Q? Because how would she know that they would go back in time? And why was Q trying to stop Renee from going on the Europa mission? Good Lord, this was a badly written season, man. I shouldn't have this many questions. I mean, I'm not the smartest, sharpest tool in the shed. I miss a lot of shit sometimes in these Star Trek shows, which is supposedly very clear. But this was just a fucking mess. A fucking mess. I'm sorry. But guys, I'm not a hater. I love new Trek. I really do. So this one didn't do it for me. Like the first season of Star Trek: The Next Generation doesn't do it for me. It's horrible. But I still love these characters, and I'll still watch it every once in a while. And maybe if this comes on at some point, I'll be like, let me watch season 2 of Picard again at some point. I doubt it. Just like I doubt I'll ever sit through season 1 of Star Trek: The Next Generation again anytime soon, unless I'm doing like a rewatch review type thing. So, it is what it is. Not the best season. Now, Picard. Why is the Borg Queen there? Because they've detected the emergence of a mysterious transwarp conduit in space. Picard accepts the collective's offer to monitor and study the conduit as provisional members of the Federation, because they have this whole thing where the Queen controls all the shields of the Federation ships. They block. It's a galactic event that shoots one ray like directly at these ships. And there's not a lot of these ships, at least from what it looked like. It was like 50 ships. Boom. Like, you telling me this thing couldn't go around? I don't know. Because it looked pretty massive. But I guess it's kind of like the DS9 wormhole and the thing just shoots straight out. I don't know. But it did set something up that's kind of interesting, which is going to get us into season 3, which we all know is going to include all the original cast of Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm excited for that. And is it species 2569, whatever that species was that, what is it? Star Trek Voyager species 8472. That the Borg are really scared of. But I would imagine that the Borg would know if it was them. Girardi would know. And be like, man, species 8472 is back. And they're a pain in my ass. And we're scared of them Could it be? Could it be them? I don't know. But I'm curious. That made me curious. And hopefully, okay, I get it. Star Trek Picard 1 and 2, Patrick Stewart and company wanted to deal with this man's feelings. Good for them. Like I said, I have zero issues with new Trek really focusing in and dialing in on feelings. Does it go overboard a little bit sometimes? Yes. Season 3. Well, it's been a while since season 3 of Star Trek Discovery, but I could have sworn there was like 3 or 4 episodes in a row where Michael Burnham cried. That's for me going overboard. I got zero issues with Michael Burnham crying. It was like once a season, maybe twice a season, because shit gets intense out there in space. And she's an emotional woman. She's coming off being Vulcan, quote unquote, for like most of her adult life. Yes, it would be a little bit tough now to deal with feelings if you're coming off of that. But, I don't need like 3 or 4 episodes in a row where your main character is crying and she's supposed to be the captain and the leader of this group of people. But same here with Picard. It's like, hopefully they're done with this. Like, I like that we're taking a deeper look at Picard. Picard's like closing out his life. Patrick Stewart in a way is closing out his life. He's an older gentleman. Hopefully he's got another 10, 20 years ahead of him. William Shatner seems to be doing okay. I hope Patrick Stewart can do the same. And he's, what's the word I'm looking for? I hope he's got all that shit resolved, man. I just hope, next season we can just have a cool space adventure. And it's not 10 episodes of Picard dealing with his feelings. Oh, Dr. Crusher, I should have told you way back in season 1 that really you were the woman. You were the one. I should have married your ass. And Worf, remember when I said you weren't brave? I apologized, a minute later, but still, in Geordi, man, I should have helped you get laid much more. And Riker, he's already spoken to. They seem okay, and Troy seems okay. And Data is not going to be there, and they resolved those issues. So who am I missing? I think I got them all. If I miss somebody, please let me know. Well, we did miss one person. It's Wesley Crusher, but that's because he appeared on this episode, and it was cool cameo. I'm not a fan of Wesley Crusher. I don't hate him either, and it was just cool to see Will Wheaton for a little bit. Although Will Wheaton in his super abyss, it's kind of off-putting. It's kind of weird. I'm not a huge fan. I tried to watch an episode of The Ready Room, and I just couldn't get into it. He's got this extra hello and guys and this and that. And, all right, not my style, but good for him. I got zero issues with Wesley Crusher, the character. In fact, guys, I was a kid at the time, okay? So, I did have a crush on Wesley Crusher, but I was the same age, okay? When TNG came out, especially with those tight little onesies that they had him wearing. So, yeah, I did not mind Wesley Crusher episodes because of that. And the character was just okay. It was whatever. It was, Star Trek TNG for me was never a show that I watched for deep character analysis. That's Deep Space Nine. I do a Deep Space Nine review, guys, every week. Did I tell you at the start of the video? That's the one I'm looking for, deep character development. That's the one where I say Jake is a way much better written, way much better, is that correct? A way better written character, like young person character than Wesley will ever be, who goes through some real difficult changes and real difficult times and real awesome character development. I know there's Jake haters out there, but I love the kid and I love his relationship with his dad. And Wesley was just like, okay, he's just another character that's gonna deal with some spatial anomaly, figure it out by the end of the episode, and then move on to the next. Like everybody else on that show, as much as I love it, it's not that deep when it comes to the character development. Um, so, but hey, for the Wesley fans, good to see him. And what else? Because it's getting late here, and I do want to watch Strange New Worlds, but I got to be up at 8 a.m. and it's 12 already. So who knows if I'll get around to it. But I think that's it, guys. It was just a lackluster season. It meandered towards nothing, like everywhere. Final episode, I did like it better than the final episode of last season because it seemed like it took its time. It was just breathing, and it made sense, even though we had a whole lot of bullshit in the middle. But if you just take like the first episode, the last episode, just like the Borg thing, forget everything about Renee going into space, the mommy issues, but just the Borg issue, okay? And realizing that, okay, this Borg queen can actually be your friend and you should trust her. And that's the thing. It was like trust issues that Picard had, not guilt issues. He had trust issues with the Borg, but him dealing with his mom's suicide, how did dealing with his mom's suicide let him know that, hey, I can fuck a bitch, because basically, him and Laris are apparently gonna be together. And how does dealing with his mommy issues help him trust the Borg? I don't know. Wasn't that connected to me? But that's it. I got nothing more to say. Hopefully next season will be a cool send-off for these characters. That's what I was going on about, right? I hope it's not like this, all these characters now are dealing with some emotional shit. No. I want my characters like Riker and Troy. They were just cool. They were cool. They were out smoking some space weed, cooking, but still ready for action when they needed. No, Riker had that house pimped up with the security. He was ready to get on that ship when it was time to get on that ship. When the Vulcan, Romulan, whatever lady was ready to attack to kill the damn androids. That's what I need. That's what I need. Okay. The emotional stuff, I got no issues with it, but I think we're done. I think Picard is resolved. It took him 2 seasons to resolve his issues, and now let's say goodbye. So, guys, live long and prosper. That's my thoughts on season 2 of Star Trek Picard. I like season 1 a bit more, despite the kind of crappy ending, but it was slow, but the plot did move forward. Yes, we had that little side story with the Borg cube that I can't remember what was the importance of the Borg cube. Maybe I have to rewatch it to remember. This one, I know I'm not going to care. I already don't care about all the side stories that happened. But I am pumped for season 3. Can't wait for it. I'm pumped to see Star Trek Strange New Worlds in a little bit. And I'm pumped for Star Trek Discovery season 5. I know some folks didn't like this last season. I thought it was okay. It didn't hit me in the gut like season 2 did, or how like 80% of season 3 did. But it wasn't a bad season at all. So I'm looking forward to more Trek. Give me more Trek. Give me more Trek. Give me more Trek. I love it. Love you guys. Live long and prosper.